Carolina's premier internet station for news and talk radio programming. Find us online at bigtalker.live.
Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, located at 8210 River Road, Southport, is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, with the Tackle Box open Monday through Saturday, 7 to 6. Marine Service Pro is a full Suzuki and Tohatsu dealership. They deal in pre-owned boats, full service and repair, with certified technicians in all engines, and fiberglass specialists. The Tackle Box offers fresh local seafood, live bait, a tackle shop, and fish packing and shipping. They also offer a full-service U-Haul dealership. Spend time with Leon or Jenny for one-stop shopping at Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, 8210 River Road, Southport.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A mysterious substance discovered from Wrightsville to Holden Beach raised concerns for some fishermen. Chatter about a thick brown sheen on top of the water made its rounds among fishermen last week. It was first reported at Lockwood Folly Inlet. According to Captain Kane Faircloth, it's unlike anything he's seen in his 12 years as a boat captain, even speculating the foreign substance could be an oil slick, which would not be good for fishing charters. After collecting samples for testing, it was discovered it was a bacteria called Trichodesmium, also known as sea sawdust. Researchers did confirm the algae isn't toxic to humans or animals in an ocean setting. A man is dead and a family is looking for answers after a crash in Brunswick County Friday night. It happened around 7:30 on Holden Beach Road near Charlotte. According to the State Highway Patrol, a car being driven by Tyrants Draquan Benbow was being pursued by Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. Benbow lost control of the car, hit a deputy's cruiser, then crashed into an oncoming vehicle head-on, causing both to flip. Benbow was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 adults and 3 children in the other vehicle were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Highway Patrol says more details on the crash are expected to be released once the investigation is complete. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says more information related to the initial cause of the pursuit will be shared at a later date. We have an alert for Wilmington drivers. There is a traffic shift on Market Street as crews are installing a stormwater pipe. The 2-way left turn lane will be closed to traffic between Ogden Fire State and Brief Road. The southbound lanes will be shifted over 1 lane. This will allow crews to work on the outside southbound lane. The northbound lanes will not be impacted. That shift will be in place for about 2 weeks. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for it. Mostly cloudy skies in store for us, and that's going to keep our temperatures on the cooler side, a few degrees below the average. We'll get into the middle 80s away from the coast, low to middle 80s along the immediate coastline. East-facing beaches today have a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out to the beach. Overall, only a small chance for isolated showers and storms to develop this afternoon as our overnight lows drop down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Teachers and parents, the North Carolina Symphony is here to support you as you carry on the education of your children and students. Take your kids on a free virtual field trip to the Symphony with a virtual education concert and companion student book. Go on a virtual journey to learn what makes music music with music by William Grant Still, Beethoven, Brahms, and more. Access the free video and student book with password 1932 at ncsymphony.org/virtual.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Joining Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
Hey kids, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Please visit the Big Talker website for things such as, the, goodness, haven't got loud. Android and iOS devices, the app, that's right. Send us an email, any comments, questions, concerns, compliments, or critiques. We can't improve without your help. Right here on the Big Talker. Not bad. Getting a little better with that. Welcome back to the Asylum. We are, as you have discovered, a morning show, unlike any other, I promise. There we go. Starting to sound a little normal this morning. There we go. Starting to hit the levels, starting to hit the stride. Trying to start a morning program. Once upon a time, I lived in a little area called Louisville, Kentucky, and got a nifty story coming out from across the river. Lucas Albach from the Louisville Courier-Journal. Funeral home investigation. What to know about the discovery of 31 bodies in Jeffersonville. I got two stories to go together. These guys and the guys in Colorado need to get together and I don't know, figure something out. Anyway, on Saturday, Jeffersonville police officials announced dozens of bodies. Nearly 3 dozen bodies were found decomposing inside a funeral home in the southern Indiana city just across the river from Louisville, which is why we built a bridge so y'all can swim home in the shade. Jeffersonville Police Major Isaac Parker told the Courier-Journal that, and as of Wednesday, the investigation is continuing with the lawsuit pending and plenty of questions still unanswered. Jeffersonville Police Major Isaac Parker told the Courier-Journal that officials looking into the case are still at the beginning aspects of the probe into Langford Funeral Home and Family Center. It's not Family Fun Center, that's for sure. After launching the investigation late last week, Parker said more than 30 bodies, some of which were in the advanced stages of decomposition, were found along with post-cremation remains of more than a dozen other people. So, investigators have spoken to the funeral home's owner, Parker said, and are working with Clark County Prosecutor's Office. Clark County Prosecutor Jeremy Mull told the Courier-Journal on Tuesday that he is still awaiting reports from all investigating agencies and will decide whether charges are appropriate once his review is complete. Meanwhile, the Jeffersonville attorney filed a lawsuit Tuesday on behalf of one family 4 days after the news broke. Here's what we know about the ongoing situation. Apparently, Jeffersonville police responded to a call about the Langford Funeral Home on the evening of July 1, according to Parker, and worked into the following morning with several law enforcement agencies to secure the facility and process the scene. This is over the period of time that led us into the 4th of July insanity. At the end of the initial investigation, Parker said 31 decomposing bodies had been found on site, along with the post-cremation remains of 16 other individuals. Jefferson police worked that scene with assistance from several other law enforcement branches, including the Clark County Sheriff's Department, Indiana State Police, the Clark County Coroner's Office, Clark County Emergency Management, Clark County Health Department, Clark County Prosecutor, Jeffersonville Fire, Indiana Attorney General's Office, and Indiana Department of Homeland Security. One question. Where does the investigation stand? Mull offered few details about the status of the case other than to say he plans to review all evidence when it's presented. Parker, too, had little to say when contacted Tuesday other than to note police are working with Mull's office and that the investigation is still in its early stages. No additional bodies or cremated remains have been found since Saturday, he confirmed. Step one for us is identifying all of the remains in hopes to provide the families of the decedents with some peace and closure. Parker said that's our main focus right now as we work through the investigation. Parker could not say whether the funeral home had been open and operating in the weeks leading up to the weekend investigation, although the funeral home had posted several updates on its Facebook page before it was taken down sometime after Saturday. The Langford Funeral Home website, which once posted obituaries and offered additional information about the facility's service, was taken off the web sometime between Saturday and Tuesday. What's happening with the bodies? Well, custody of the bodies and remains has been transferred to the Clark County Coroner's Office, which did not return a request for comment Tuesday afternoon. That agency is working with police to identify all the remains. Anyone with concerns or information about the remains or who had entrusted care of a family member to Langford Funeral Home is asked to contact the coroner's office, and anyone with additional tips about the case is asked to reach out to Jeffersonville Police. The voicemail for the business now instructs callers to contact the coroner's office. Who owns the joint? According to the facility's now unpublished website, Randy Langford serves as owner, director, and embalmer at the funeral home. The establishment staff directory listed 3 employees, with 1 taking care of marketing. Randy Langford did not respond to phone calls and emails Saturday and Tuesday seeking comment. And who is suing Langford Funeral Homes? Well, this should be at least, 31 people. Jeffersonville attorney Larry Wilder filed a civil lawsuit against the funeral home Tuesday in Clark Circuit Court on behalf of 2 clients concerned about the handling of their daughter's remains. In the suit, the 2 claim they entrusted the remains of Nicole Laurie, who died June 14, to the business. The case claims that Langford told the family she had been cremated, but that he never delivered an urn with her remains, leading the family to believe her body may be among those recovered over the weekend. Lawsuits represent just one side of a case. Wilder said he plans to request the court take up the case as a class action lawsuit, which would allow additional families to join as plaintiffs. It also bumps up his take on it. So after, millions of dollars, he'll walk with most of it, and the families are still left with an empty bag. Now, Langford, right? Funeral home with 31 bodies they didn't know what to do with. Well, over in Colorado, right? Coming out of USA Today, do I have an author? Yes, Marina Pitsovsky. Believe this one, Colorado funeral home operator accused of stealing and selling body parts pleads guilty. Well, think about it. A little side hustle there. A Colorado woman who operated a funeral home pleaded guilty to fraud this week after being accused of stealing and selling bodies and body parts, officials said. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Colorado confirmed in a statement Tuesday that Megan Hess, 45, pleaded guilty to 1 count of mail fraud and aiding and abetting. The charges come after she, quote, devised and executed a scheme to steal the bodies or body parts of hundreds of victims and then sold those remains to victims purchasing the remains for scientific, medical, or educational purposes, according to the statement. The body parts and bodies were sold without the consent of the deceased's family, officials confirmed. This gets even more fun. It's a family affair. Hess, who also worked with her mother, Shirley Koch, met with families seeking cremation services offered to cremate the decedent's bodies and provided the remains to the family, according to the Department of Justice Bulletin. They also charged a minimum of $1,000 for cremations that often did not occur. Hess created a nonprofit organization in 2009 called Sunset Mesa Funeral Foundation, which did business as donor services, and which officials called a body broker service. Donor services income primarily came from harvesting and marketing purportedly donated human remains such as heads, torsos, arms, legs, or entire bodies, human bodies, according to an indictment in the case. According to the indictment, records maintained by Hess and Koch contained forged signatures and claims that a donation was authorized or no donor authorization at all. Hess and Koch received hundreds of thousands of dollars for remains sold, according to the indictment. Officials added in the bulletin that in some instances where families did agree to donate limited remains, Hess and Koch sold beyond what was authorized. They also derived remains to families with the representation that the cremated remains were that of the deceased, when frequently that was not the case. They also shipped bodies and body parts of people who tested positive for infectious diseases, such as Hep B and C, HIV, though they told buyers the people did not have diseases. Hess in U.S. District Court in Grand Junction, Colorado on Tuesday said, quote, "I exceeded the scope of the consent and I'm trying to make an effort to make it right," the Daily Sentinel reported. "I am taking responsibility," she added. The scheme began in 2010 and continued until 2018. Prosecutors have recommended a sentence of 12 to 15 years. She has also faced additional charges, but they were dropped as part of her plea. I'm hoping there's some lawsuits that come out of that one. But if you got 31 bodies that you don't know what to do with that are just laying around, you could ship them off to Colorado and make a few bucks on it. Right? I mean, no scruples here, ladies and gentlemen. Man, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, toes are not. You thought gas was expensive. Try buying a human torso. Right? I mean, Colorado might be high, but what kind of prices are you looking at? And this is all in the private sector, mind you. And this is dealing with you like, if you don't care, right? I've heard people say this, "I don't care what you do, I'll be dead." I bet you care now. Somebody making money on your dead carcass, and it's not your family. Oh, yeah. There should be some, I think the term is restitutions. Yeah, there should definitely be some conversations there that would not be very, very pleasant. In other news, I think this is New England, right? Jeremiah's show, 96.5 KISS FM. Never heard of this. Oh, it's in Cleveland. But let me guess. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yeah, it was a New England thing. All right, you ready for this? Good news. Firefighters dive into river to find lost diamond ring. Yes. Firefighters, ladies and gentlemen, first responders, those who come to save your life. On July 3rd, Cambridge, Massachusetts Fire Department Marine units were patrolling the Charles River and became aware that a woman had lost her diamond ring in the river nearby. Since the woman was pretty sure she knew where the ring had fallen into the river, the team decided to try and help the couple recover it. Firefighters Jeremy Marache and Eric Moore prepared for the dive, and within 5 minutes of getting in the water, found the ring and returned it to the grateful couple. Who paid for that one? Yeah, the Cambridge, Massachusetts taxpayers were paying for the, whoops, somebody else's diamond ring. Now, to be fair, they're not showing any, I mean, I'm not going to watch a video thingy for it, but I'm going to bet this was going to be aesthetically driven. Because if you can imagine, right, ugly people don't get breaks, right? Cute people do. So, if it had been that woman from Misery, chances are that, your ring is still down there. But, otherwise, Oh. Now we get into the heavy Asylum news. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. This one, oh man, Yahoo News, didn't even know they existed. Coming out of the Independent, actually. A story from the Independent written by Gino Spocchia, whatever. I'm not good with those names. Woman. Tell me this is Florida. Nah, it's Wisconsin, darn. Woman accused of decapitating lover mid-sex and dismembering his body parts pleads not guilty. Hey. A Wisconsin woman accused of decapitating her lover with a metal chain mid-coitus, dismembering his corpse and severing his penis, has pled not guilty to homicide charges. maybe it's a technicality, right? It wasn't exactly homicide. It was sexicide, I guess. I don't know. Taylor got business. Got business. Is that really the name? SCH Business. Shaw Business. 24. She's 24 years old. Bright young lady. She entered the plea through her lawyer on Wednesday in a Brown County, Wisconsin court. She is expected to stand for trial in October and February. Mishka Business Taylor was arrested on charges of homicide with mutilating a corpse and third-degree sexual assault in connection with the death of Shad Therian, another 24-year-old guy. She has been accused of strangling Tyrion. Man, whatever happened to a name like Bob? She has been accused of strangling the guy to death at his mother's address in Green Bay, Wisconsin, before then decapitating his head with a knife, as the Green Bay Press-Gazette reported in a criminal complaint. The pair had used chains. The pair had used chains to choke one another as foreplay, the criminal complaint said, with Mishka Business telling officers that the pair had taken illegal substances beforehand. That allegedly included marijuana and methamphetamine as well as prescription drugs. Mishka Business said she continued having sex with the dead body of Tyrion for a period of time because she enjoyed it, Green Bay police were told. Mishka Business removed other parts, including the man's penis, torso, and various organs. His head was found in a bucket by his mother, who phoned 911 to report his murder. The criminal complaint added his torso was reportedly found in a storage tote as per Oxygen, which I'm guessing is a website. Police eventually located Scott Business, who had removed a GPS tracker from her ankle in connection with another crime and was wanted by police hours before allegedly committing the murder of Tyrion. If convicted of Wisconsin's highest murder charge, she could be sentenced to life in prison. Her other charges carrying sentences between 10 and 12 and a half years. Scott Business is currently being held on a bond of $2 million. And I'm not seeing that she has any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Visible means of support. I could be wrong. I could be. I mean, it happens, but still, you know, if you're going to get naked and intimate with somebody, make sure you know the person. That's the only advice I got, right? I think that's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Premature? No. Well, certainly a Black Widow type of thing. Right? I could be wrong, but seldom am I. I mean, human nature is undefeated, and this is one of those predictable elements. If you can't imagine that. Obviously, you're not paying attention. Yes, I'm having to deal with some silliness here in the studio. Hang on. All right. So, man. Choking each other with chains as foreplay. That right there should have been a pretty big, pretty big red flag. Whips and chains and decapitation. All part of the game. And of course, they're going to blame it on the marijuana, not the methamphetamines, and the other prescription drugs that were illegal, meaning they were probably meant for mom. And instead, Taylor over here decided to ride it to the end. Ride that horse until it died, I guess. Wow. Still, that's pretty heavy duty. Let's see. You know what? I think I am going to jump I should tease this. If this works, if this goes right, I should have a guest after the break. And one of the stories we're going to cover is a recently released famous guy. And then we're going to giggle at the stupid stuff he says. Because he was already stupid back in the 80s, so being stupid now only adds to it. And it's the kind of stupid that you just shake your head at because you're like, wait a minute, how did this even get onto my radar? Oh, because we're stupid American. And that's how we do things here. Maybe we'll learn from it all, I don't know. But until then, oh, look at that. Even the little fade button didn't work. With that in mind, I'm hoping that y'all will take the opportunity during this news break to visit BigTalker.live, peruse our schedule of content, and of course, download the app for Android and iOS devices. You'll love it. It's a way of life. That's right. So don't go nowhere. We're going to be right back. Right here on the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Don't go nowhere.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A mysterious substance discovered from Wrightsville to Holden Beach raised concerns for some fishermen. Chatter about a thick brown sheen on top of the water made its rounds among fishermen last week. It was first reported at Lockwood Folly Inlet. According to Captain Kane Faircloth, it's unlike anything he's seen in his 12 years as a boat captain. Even speculating the foreign substance could be an oil slick, which would not be good for fishing charters. After collecting samples for testing, it was discovered it was a bacteria called Trichodesmium, also known as sea sawdust. Researchers did confirm the algae isn't toxic to humans or animals in an ocean setting. A man is dead and a family is looking for answers after a crash in Brunswick County Friday night. It happened around 7:30 on Holden Beach Road near Charlotte. According to the State Highway Patrol, a car being driven by Tyrants Draquan Benbow was being pursued by Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. Benbow lost control of the car, hit a deputy's cruiser, then crashed into an oncoming vehicle head-on, causing both to flip. Benbow was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 adults and 3 children in the other vehicle were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Highway Patrol says more details on the crash are expected to be released once the investigation is complete. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says more information related to the initial cause of the pursuit will be shared at a later date. We have an alert for Wilmington drivers. There is a traffic shift on Market Street as crews are installing a stormwater pipe. The 2-way left turn lane will be closed to traffic between Ogden Fire State and Brief Road. The southbound lanes will be shifted over 1 lane. This will allow crews to work on the outside southbound lane. The northbound lanes will not be impacted. That shift will be in place for about 2 weeks. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for it. Mostly cloudy skies in store for us. And that's going to keep our temperatures on the cooler side, a few degrees below the average. We'll get into the middle 80s away from the coast, low to middle 80s along the immediate coastline. East-facing beaches today have a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out to the beach. Overall, only a small chance for isolated showers and storms to develop this afternoon as our overnight lows drop down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, qu'il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose.
MusicRewind.com is serving cafe culture, 100 songs to enjoy with your coffee. A perfect blend of music from across the globe.
Con Dios, mi vida. Vaya con Dios, mi amor.
Won't you stop and take a little time out with me?
Get cafe culture today at MusicRewind.com or call 855-798-5556 and pay only $21.98 for this 4-CD world music collection. Use promo code CAFE55 to save on shipping. Take the journey with MusicRewind.com or call 855-798-5556. Remember promo code CAFE55 for reduced shipping. This offer is available for a limited time to U.S. residents only and cannot be combined with any other offer.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
That's right, it's the Asylum. How crazy is that? And if anybody is tuned in from the Chad Adams page on Facebook, y'all should send him a message inviting him or requesting that he join the Asylum in the mornings. He's a much smarter guy than I am, and he's a lot better at this than I am. In fact, one of the conversations I would like to include him in, I mean, he would have probably pointed out the idiot mistake that I made. Come on, machine, catch up with me. Go away. Look at this. It's trying to give me why it has to put 15 things in there at once. I don't know. I don't get it. But it is a whole new wonderful day. Well, we'll get back to some of those stories here in a minute. I think I've got this working out right. Bill, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, look at that. That is amazing stuff right there. Our friend Bill Moore from the Brunswick County GOP is with us. I just have one more button to push. How you doing this morning, sir?
I am doing well. It's always good to talk to you. How was your weekend?
It was quite energetic, if you can imagine that.
I'm afraid to.
Well, it wasn't quite as exciting as some of the things y'all get to do down in the Brunswick County area. Y'all have the beaches extraordinaire that exceed our own. So I'm guessing there was some activities down there. They had to cancel some, move some to the, we covered some of that Monday, but again, for me, coffee is just now kicking in, so.
Well, I'm sipping on my cup as we talk, so.
Well, you probably have more neurons connected than I do.
Then I will tell you that the one big difference between our beaches and your beaches is we don't charge to park.
Carolina beaches in Brunswick?
No, Carolina and Curie are all New Hanover.
Really? Okay, so all the greed is coming from the New Hanover side of things.
Yeah, none of that is Brunswick. All of that is New Hanover.
And the parking even got it all the way up to Topsail Beach now.
Yeah, I know.
And you guys are still keeping it free.
Well, there's one Ocean Isle is thinking about it, but they haven't done it yet. But the rest of them, they're all free to go there and just park, enjoy yourself, and spend what you spend in the local economy. But they like you to come down here, and our beaches are good.
Oh yeah, some of them like one of my favorite areas down in the Southport is down by Frying Pan, I think it is, American Fish Company, that little strip area. Yep. I mean, I don't know if you call it a beach, but it's really fun. I got to participate in the flotilla. I can't remember the guy's name. Stede Bonnet. What's his name?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Yeah, so they had a flotilla, and that whole place was lit up, man. That was crazy.
Was that the Christmas flotilla?
No, this was the I think it's in September.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was crazy. It was still decent weather, and there had to be 100 boats or
Oh,
more.
I'm sure. I am sure that, and right, going along with even the 4th of July celebration, the county party on Saturday had a celebration of freedom event at our headquarters. Very well attended. Great singers. We hire a couple of veterans who are DJs. They played some great music. A number of the politicians talked. Some of the candidates running for office talked. But people had a great time. And one of those unusual events that the party can run is we actually ran it free, and we gave people free hot dogs and sodas and tea or lemonade and chips and cake. So all that was free if you just showed up.
Man, this sounds like some old school, 20th century community gathering type stuff. How is that possible?
Because when you come to Brunswick, it's still a community. They still people down here still care. They have not caught the big city element. I mean, a little bit of Leland might be heading that way, but for the most part,
You think? I think wasn't Leland limited on what they can do in expansion?
yes, they were. Fortunately,
Unfortunately, you say.
no, I said fortunately.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I was wondering, it's like the big kid outgrew his britches and wants to buy up everybody else's pants and sew them all into one big.
And as a further little slap on the wrist, a law was passed at the state level that went through unanimously, as those local bills usually do, which basically further cut their powers to do things. For example, up to then, they could go skip 3 miles from their boundary, not necessarily having something in between, and still annex. That's been cut to a mile and a half, and it's definitely said you need to get the whole vote, not just one or two people saying that they want to come.
So, there's a spot in Fuquay that does that.
Yep.
So Fuquay Arena is at the junction of Highway 401, just south of Raleigh, and I think it's the Fayetteville Highway area, whatever. And then you go south on 401 past a little town called Calibiot Springs, and then there's a little enclave that's called Fuquay Arena, which is about 3 or 4 miles away from downtown Fuquay Arena and has been annexed as a separate tax base. I didn't know you could do. I've always been curious. I did not know that needed to be stopped by a law. That's
well, the law generally from the state says you can jump 3 miles, but in this particular case, they put a specific limit on Leland.
And well, they should. I mean, I don't know if Leland has a boss hog or something sitting in the chair trying to get rich off of this, but holy mackerel.
Leland's growth has been phenomenal with properties that they have there. The other thing that was going on with Leland about a year ago or less, they signed over all their water operation and sewer operation to a private company called H2Go.
Yeah.
Okay. And what became interesting with that, and part of this law also kind of addresses what was in that law that nobody will admit to. It kind of said that if you wanted to use H2Go, because they were now the town's water supply, you had to also agree to be annexed by Leland if you were in the unincorporated area.
Whoa.
So, but now this new law says you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that does sound illegal. That's almost like, the contest where no purchase required, but you can't get an entry form unless you buy something.
Well, for many, many moons, there's been forced annexation in this state and other states. So they just see something they like, there's a tax base there, they grab it, and people don't have much of a choice. Now they're saying people have to vote for it. You have to be within a certain limit. So they're cutting back, and they can't coerce you to doing that, because if you'd like our water, you have to become part of the town.
That's brutal.
So
now, what happens to everybody else?
That little law became very important, unincorporated part, because Leland's kind of been sniffing at the little unincorporated area of Waccamaw, and they're looking to go a little bit south of that. And the residents there are digging in and saying, no, we'll become incorporated if we have to, but we're not joining Leland. So there's a bigger issue in that little part of our town, our county. So.
I can imagine. Now, has there been any pushback to the H2Go? Have they been able to meet their promises have they?
Let me give you an example because, I live in Brunswick Forest, which is part of H2GO by the fact we're part of Leland, and they gave up all their rights to us. The first thing they did when they took over in January was send us a water restriction level telling us we couldn't water our lawns but 3 days a week. January. Now, I called them immediately and I said, it's January. Why are we trying to cut restriction on water? Because who the hell's watering their lawn in January? Well, there are people that do that. And my next question was, well, then what are you going to do in May, June, July, and August when it's really hot? And they wouldn't answer that. So, but we are still in a water restriction that started in January, which, depending on the number of your house, you can either do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Never watering on Monday for some reason.
That's because people who have swimming pools to fill.
No. Now, and actually, when you get down into here, a lot of it, there may be some pools involved, but for the most part, people like a pretty lawn, and they're willing to put the dollars into, doing a lawn. And and what the counties and the states have at least done is you now get a dual meter at your house, which is good. I don't know if you know that, but
no,
you actually have 2 meters coming in, and it measures the water going into your house and the water going to your lawn. And the reason for that is they will charge the water going into your house the sewer tax because it's going to be coming back out into the system. If it's just going to your lawn, you don't have to pay that. So in effect, we get 2 bills rolled into one, and for a change, it actually helps the people because there's no sense in water I go on the lawn me paying a sewer tax to treat it.
Yeah, that's. Now, of course, coming from New Mexico, we've always had pretty severe restrictions on lawn maintenance. If you've ever seen our golf courses, they look like, have you ever, spilled water on a table and it forms weird random shapes?
Yep.
Imagine that in the color green on a brown desert landscape. That's what our golf courses look like. I mean, there is no rough. The rough is dirt. Everything else.
I've been to Arizona and I've seen that kind of layout out there.
It's weird. So
it's pretty.
It is. It's starking because you can really tell, when you come to North Carolina, you don't recognize green because everything is green. In New Mexico, when you see something green, it stands out. Right?
Oh, yeah. It's almost like the painted desert.
And we've always paid water, sewage together, that whatever water you paid, there was a percentage of it they considered sewage, right? Because it all has to go into the system. But I've never heard of a place like this that's so lush and green have restrictions on water. I mean, y'all have water out here. Desert doesn't have water. I understand restrictions when you don't have water, but we just have
a lot of the water is coming out of the ground from the wells, and the issue for this affects New Hanover and I guess Bender too, because you're coastal communities. The swelling of numbers change things greatly. I don't understand the January one. I can understand the summer because, for example, Leland and Southport will grow by an average of 20,000 people over the winter, the summer when people come to visit. This county will grow by 20,000 people in an area. So all of a sudden, they still require water and services. So they have to plan for that year round, even though it's not a year round issue.
Dig. I just find it unusual. I just never would have thought of it visiting here as a kid. I remember landing in an airplane. You could see the difference coming over the Appalachian Mountains, that everything on this side of it was just lush and green and moist and alive, that when we landed, I would have never thought that there was water restrictions here.
Well, and that's interesting because the H2GO has had these restrictions going on, like I said, since January. The rest of the county is under county water, and they only put the restrictions in recently because of because Leland Brunswick has been under a drought till we got that rain yesterday. There was the first stages of a drought here. The water kept going by and hitting New Hanover, and it just gave us a sprinkle and waved and kept going.
Huh. Well, don't feel too bad. All we got was our water came with the bonus ChemWars additions, addendums, and elements. So, we had a little extra flavor in our water as it came down to us.
Yeah, we had the Coors issue here too, but again, credit to our county people, and H2Go is building one also. To be fair, they've invested in reverse osmosis water treatment plants that have both will be online. If one may be online already, the other one's coming online shortly, and they found out that is the most effective treatment to take out that Gen X stuff out of the water, and it actually takes it down to 99% or better pure. So, to both places have done that in Brunswick. And the other thing I comment and I give credit to the county commissioners, they take a look at growth on a regular basis. They have now created the capability for water and sewages, which they believe will be in place for another 10 years before we have to worry about growth again.
Wow.
So, they've actually planned, and they put extra lines in where it's there because they're going to need it, not because they necessarily need it. But it's cheaper to do it in today's dollars than 5 years from now when everything's going to be more expensive, and it's going to be a crisis because you have to get it done. So to their credit, they've done that, and they've still kept. And again, I talk about county commissioners with bragging rights. With all this going on, our county commission has kept the taxes in Brunswick. We are the 11th lowest county taxes in the state out of 100 counties.
Now, if I can get your opinion, do you feel more confident with H2Go as opposed to a public utility like CFPUA, or do you feel more confident?
I'm less confident with it.
Really?
I just, to me, I don't like some of the things that were played. For example, and they elected, supposedly we get to elect their boards of directors because they would run since it's an operation for Leland, they get to run for the people to vote. Now in Brunswick Forest, when we had this election for boards of directors, we only had two choices. Do we want to join or do we not want to join the thing? And basically, you had no choice. You had to vote for it, but you didn't get any choice of the people that were running the board of directors for the H2Go. They have their meetings, but so far, they haven't been the most responsive group I've dealt with.
Wait a minute. So I'm trying to clear this up. You were supposed to vote on someone to go to the board, but instead you were presented with either being part of the H2Go family or not.
Correct, in Brunswick Forest.
So they switched.
The rest of Leland got to pick the candidates. There were 4 people. I think there were 5 people running for 4 slots. So they got to vote for those people. In Brunswick, all we had the right to do was say, yes, we want to join, or no, we don't want to join. And the reality is we really didn't have much of a choice.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, that's almost insulting in a way. I mean, I'm hoping somebody said something about that. And
well, the answer was you were not a member yet, so therefore you couldn't vote.
I thought you didn't have a choice. Like, you were just annexed by H2Go, and therefore, your water is now all of us.
We really didn't have a choice, but the reality was they made it look like a choice.
Man, that's brutal. And now they own Leland in Brunswick County.
If you didn't, basically what was going to happen is if you didn't vote to join, you were still going to get the water from H2Go, but you would have lost any rights at all to decide how it's run.
Wow.
So really, you had no choice. That's the reality of it. You had no choice.
And then they're going to take away even more of your theoretical rights, as it were, because as a public authority, we have the right to address our stewards of this, right? So my fear, as it's developing in this conversation, is the greed factor. Once you get between the human beings and something they simply cannot live without, you can pretty much write your own check at that point, set your own price. Is that a fear?
Yes, it is, because people complained in the county's case. For the rest of the county, they've had one raise in rates in like 10 years, and I think it was $1, not a major one. They're already talking about additional costs and passing them on because, again, they're a smaller operation. They took over the county sewerage operation. They do all the repairs. They do it all now, and they've got a large staff, and the staff has to be taken care of. And again, they can't spread it out to the numbers that you do county-wise.
Man. And that's not like with CFPUA right now, where they are in a lawsuit with Kimwars to recoup the costs that have been passed on to the consumers currently. Any plans like that from H2Go?
I don't know about H2Go. I do know the county is involved. Our county commissioners are involved in that lawsuit, and they're expecting some money back to help build this osmosis plant or pay for it.
Wow. That does sound kind of complicated because you're going to get county government money to give to a private company that's making profit.
No, stop there.
Okay.
The county gets the money. It'll take care of the county people. It's not going to give any money to H2Go.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
That ain't happening. That'll take care of 90% of the county, but the Leland area is on its own because it has its own water supply because the town council gave it away.
Now, is there a time, like is there a honeymoon period that if y'all don't like what's going on with H2Go, you can boot them to the corner or
No.
they pretty much took over and until they go bankrupt, you're stuck?
They pretty much took over or until the town council wants to try and vote and take it back, which I don't see that happening anytime soon either.
Okay, so we just have to wait for some sort of scandal to break before any real move will be made in this direction.
And the one thing we can guarantee at some point there'll be a scandal someplace.
Yeah, Elon Musk trying to buy it and then back out and then put his ex-girlfriend, mother of twins, onto the board to run the thing for you.
By the way, I was here, your home state of New Mexico.
Yeah.
The abortion capital of the Southwest. I'm impressed. Listen to that.
Well, okay, so we got to back up about 30, 40 years. That I will take this title over the title of the speed manufacturing capital of the world. Because the mountains of New Mexico during the 80s and 90s was nothing but... I mean, you thought Breaking Bad was funny? Nah, that's real.
Really?
Yeah, because there is so few population in the Rockies and Mount Pilot or Mount Taylor, etc., that you can, it stinks to make this stuff. So you can park a little trailer in the middle of some, forest joint somewhere and start cranking out tons of meth, and nobody will notice because the trees will absorb all the odor.
But yeah, there were places, in the mountains that they used to cover massive marijuana plant throwing.
Yeah.
Because they're netting up and you can't see it from the sky.
So I think we'll take the crown of abortion capital of the Southwest over the drug capital for speed and meth and whatever else.
I'm just, I'm kind of,
We're still killing people either way.
Surprised that I always thought New Mexico would be, somewhat of a conservative state. I guess it's not. I guess it's much more liberal than I thought.
Well, there's a lot more diversity than I think most people are ready for because we have indigenous people, right? There's at least 5 Native American tribes in that area that have a completely different mindset than anybody is ready for. You can't really pontificate to these people because they don't have the same white people's importance or strata, if that makes sense. They don't care. Plus, you have a very large Hispanic community that's legal and illegal. So a lot of your decisions, a lot of your base is going to be more artistic and more Catholic oriented in nature. It's really weird. It's a lot more diverse than, say, I don't know, Milwaukee.
Yeah, but if you're Catholic, I would think that a lot of them would be pro-choice much more than becoming the capital of abortions.
Well, it's not the traditional European Catholic. This is Latino Catholic. They still have a lot of their original. I don't want to say cultish or whatever. They have a lot of their original beliefs from their culture that sort of coincide with their Catholicism.
Yeah, a lot of the, for want of a better term, the native elements that even the American Indians or the people that mix with the Aztecs and the people down there, they have their own traditions, mores, and whatever else that is blended with Christianity to create a religion. I understand that may be a little bit different than the European house. Yeah, but if you look at it, you can look at the Russian Orthodox or the Greek Orthodox Catholic Church, and they are very different from the Roman Catholic.
Yep, and the layout, the homogenization has not occurred in New Mexico like you would expect in other places, because
Really?
it's a very high level of Hispanic and Native Americans. That it's a black and white thing. It's predominantly black white, and then your third party would be your illegal immigrants. But there's not a lot of ethnic diversity beyond immigrants and indigenous. It's not a black-white thing out there.
Because part of my family's from Oklahoma, and I visit there on a regular basis. And really, they have a more Indian issue, if you will, the conflicts between the Indian population and the rest of the population of the state. They have a somewhat minority black operation, but again, the bigger issue is between the Indians and whatever else. And I saw that even last week or 2 weeks ago when I was in Canada, because they're having the problems with the indigenous people in British Columbia, because unfortunately the Canada people have not settled their treaties, and now some of the land that they were going to give and they don't want to give now has got very valuable minerals in it.
Yep. That's why they want to sell it for a cigar.
That was like the gold rush in the Dakotas, back many, many years here. But
now,
interesting.
To rebuff your point about conservatism in New Mexico, they did have quite the battle over voter rights along the same party lines that's happening in the rest of the planet, and it was very conservative heavy there for a minute.
For a minute? Oh, whoa. Whole minute, huh?
Well.
By the way, what is the breakdown there as far as Republican, Democrat? I'm just curious. I don't know. Do you have any idea?
If you give me a moment, I can look it up. And you have quite a bit of information just for our local area on the slate card that you guys are. Because I know Paul's working on that. He's unable to join me this morning. But y'all also have slate cards yourselves, right?
Who's Paul?
Paul Vallone from Guns, Politics, Freedom. He's part of the Grassroots North Carolina.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. We have a slate card that we put out every year, every election, and we mail it home, and we send one to every Republican and every unaffiliated who we know leans Republican. And they get the slate card before election, plus we have our people out there handing it out at election time. And it's convenient. And it's probably still a very good thing, but it became extremely important a few years ago because up till just recently, the judges were not labeled by party. So in this state,
right.
So you had no idea, but now they are labeled Republican and Democrat. So the slate cards help, but they're not quite as necessary as they were before because everybody has a party label on it now. So people can find out who they want to vote for.
And now I can answer your question.
Yes, sir.
According to the Pew Research Org, 15% of New Mexicans have no lean.
Okay.
37 identify or lean Republican. 48% lean Democrat or Democrat. So it's almost more than Republicans and non-committed combined to Democrats.
Had to be that way if you're going to be doing that abortion movement, because it wouldn't make any sense otherwise. I mean, you wouldn't see it in Texas.
Nope. But you're going to see more money in New Mexico over the next couple of years than you will in Texas, guaranteed. One, you can't ski in Texas, and two, you can't correct an error in Texas.
In Texas, they call it water skiing.
Yeah, okay. You want to go water skiing in January, have at it.
Well, in Texas, you can.
Well,
it may be a little cold, but they got suits that'll get you out in the water. It's not going to freeze.
Well, I'm also thinking of since they're on their own electrical grid, if they're not on their own water supply, there's a lot about Texas that has made me nervous since a child. Right? Anytime I saw Texas license plates inside my state of New Mexico, I knew I was in dangerous territory.
Now, Texans are good people. I have relatives there too. They're good people. And I will tell you what's interesting. Talking about quickly on the abortion issue, a couple of things that were just popped in the paper. There's a woman out of California. I don't remember her name top of my head. Who so far raised $20 million, and her intent is to put an abortion ship in the Gulf of Mexico so that people can be flown in from the red states, quote, that banned it, and it'll be in international waters. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch because I'm sure there'll be challenges over that.
Oh, I have been curious, or turning over in my head the number of cottage industries that are going to pop up as a result of this. I mean, there are going to be travel agencies that specialize.
Yep. Because you have states that are advertising, come to us. It's California, New Mexico, New York, Illinois. I mean, they're singing, please come to us. We'll do it. And the other thing that was interesting this week, and I have a problem with this only because of the illegal alien part of it. There was a story that was out showing a number of illegal aliens being loaded by the federal government into vans to be taken to an airport, to be flown to wherever to have an abortion and then brought back.
I'm not sure I could put a lot of weight on that one.
No, I saw the pictures. I know and the story had there's some backing on that one. And I wouldn't just go jump for somebody on a website. This came across and I did some checking on it. It's fact. So that bothers me in that, again, we're not taking care of them, but I'm a big fan, obvious reasons of veterans. We have homeless veterans. We have veterans that can't get help that they need. And yet we're doing all this for people sneaking into the country. And we violate the basic precepts of what is a country. A country is a nation with borders, among other things.
Well, it's very difficult to manage and maintain balance on so many different issues because anybody can be upset about anything at any time, and all of it requires money, and everybody wants their 15 minutes of attention. That, yeah, I can see that this issue is going to be a problem, but when you compare issues, I don't think it's it's entirely fair to balance one against the other until we come up with some sort of answer ahead of time. For example, comparing the cost of insulin to the cost of Narcan. Right, there's a meme out there. Why is Narcan free to a drug addict when I have to pay hundreds of dollars for my insulin? Where the argument is invalid because one person's struggle is not another person's argument, if that makes sense. There's a lot of unfair, in debate, we would just call them fallacies of logic.
Yeah.
And we do that on a daily basis in a way of sort of anesthetizing our cognitive dissonance so that we can have these conversations and justify our reaction to them, which the reaction of itself, meaning, the homeless rate of veterans is something that needs to be addressed, but it shouldn't necessarily be used as fodder or argument in another situation that's not necessarily related. Does that make sense?
It does, but unfortunately, there's also a reality that there's a finite amount of money for executing. Right. There's only so many slices you can make in that pie, and you have to prioritize who gets the piece. And to my role of thinking, a veteran is pretty high on that list and shouldn't be the basement. And if that means that somebody who's trying to get into the country illegally is not going to get quote these free benefits, that's not my problem. That's their problem. And I would argue people are always saying they're coming for a better life, and I understand that. However, there's a reality. There are 330 million Americans, round numbers,
right.
And there are 8 billion people in the world, of which the World Health Organization says approximately 80% of them are in poverty. That means, in round figures again, 6 billion people are in poverty. We taking them all, or are we going to be selective? And that's the bottom line again. It's a finite resource. This country cannot absorb 8 billion people or 6 billion people.
That's part of the argument as well. And that's where we run into the situation of, do we help our neighbors? Do we not help our neighbors? At some point, there is going to be a realization, whether it's now or 100 years from now, that the planet, at least at this moment, is not incapable of supporting 8 billion people. The problem is the people don't want to support 8 billion people.
Well, that's a problem. But the other problem is, and tying to this, is a problem of natural resources.
Yes, and that's where the greed comes in, because if we had free access, not free access like everybody just free for all, but if we had adult or mature type of stewardship, then the access to these resources would be more evenly distributed. It wouldn't be all one country with gas and all one country with oil and all one country with microchips and cheap labor. It would be more homogenized.
Yeah, the idea would be almost like your natural resources. If you have the population, they go to a different country to do the work, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, I understand that. The problem we're facing here is, and I don't think anybody's looking long term. We say we have a couple of 100 years of natural gas and oil that we can support ourselves and whatever else, but we're using everybody else's. Now, if you've looked historically at every war that's ever happened, it's all over natural resources. It could be a port, it could be people, it could be gold, it could be whatever minerals or food that you happen to have that they don't have.
Fertile land.
When we expend the rest of the world's natural resources, and the only one left is ours.
Yep. And that's sort of the I don't know the term, but it's that sort of shady business where you want to make sure that your cash is safe. So you're going to sell out your competition first, so that when the world is now on its knees looking for fuel, the local company can say, "Hey, look what I found."
Now, the local companies have found that it's our government that's stopping them from pumping it and selling it. Again, if you look at things around the world, whether you like Trump or not, the reality was we were energy exporters. Russia wasn't doing what it was doing before that because they couldn't sell the oil at great prices because we controlled the price with what we exported. We exported the natural gas too. But now we've shut down all our abilities, or a great part of it. And what's happened? The Russians can now get big dollars for their oil. That gives them big dollars to put into military. And, you end up with what you got going on now. You have China flexing its things. Though if you just saw the report speaking of China, the Biden administration sold 1 million barrels of our strategic oil reserve to a company owned by the Chinese.
Oh, that almost happened with the Vertex Rail. I mean, those guys are nefarious and malicious in a number of ways that I wouldn't necessarily blame them as a direct influence as opposed to being shysted themselves.
Well, one would think...
I don't trust them.
One would think if we can put a missile within a foot or more, a yard of a target, and we can put somebody on the moon, one should be able to figure out the basic stuff like, there's the fuel, here's who need it, who's buying it. It can't be that hard unless you choose not to look.
I think that's going to be a big player in the next few years. But I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I mean, I'm still having trouble tying my shoes in the morning. So trying to unpack or tackle some of these larger issues is it's almost exhausting just trying to wrap my head around it.
Well, the problem is, there's no real issue that's black and white. They've all got their shades of gray. And, you need to find out what works best and what's for everyone or the greater majority of people. And what in our case, and it's, even though we're our own country and we need to be America first, but understand that we're still not isolated in the world. We have to support the rest of the world because we are their partners trading, we're their partners for protection. We're human beings. So with all that in common, we need to be cognizant of the United States, but also cognizant of the world. And that's a very tough line to walk and cross at times.
Yep, and that's where I get, just when somebody gets upset about something, but they're basing it in comparison to something else, it's like, wait a minute, these are two completely different issues. It's like arguing about gas consumption with trucks, but you still need the trucks to bring the food to the grocery store for you to get in your car, put gas in, and go get the food. So it's a lot bigger than people, we have a tendency, I think, as individuals to simplify matters so that we can compartmentalize and handle it. And I just don't have the brain power myself to say, all right, it's that big. personally cannot see that much at one time, if that makes sense.
Well, any action that people take, there are always unintended consequences. You didn't think it would go. That's a reality. However, the other fact is you get so snowed in, you do nothing, and then you've got to make some decisions, and you got to make the best decision based on the available knowledge, and about how it affects your nation, your people, the world at times, and you go with it, and then you deal with it. Again, being an old military, you make a plan for combat. It's not going to be perfect because the other side is not going to follow your schedule. So you're not going to, you don't expect them. You will be at this line and you'll wait for us to get there. You have to expect they're going to do something unexpected, and you have to be able to adjust and counter and to be successful. And that's no different than any other decisions we're making. You have to make a decision, move forward with it, but be prepared because of unintended consequences and address them where and when you can.
Okay, then how about mistakes? Because in my personal life as a musician, making mistakes is what teaches me how to play better. But we don't seem to be able to do that as a society. We just completely rail people into the ground. We even show up at restaurants and ruin these people just trying to have dinner. I mean, they may not be popular, but my God, let them have dinner with their family in peace before you go nuts on them,
And I agree with you. And the other side of that coin is we've become a society, and I think this is the basis for most of our issues. Nobody takes personal responsibility for anything. It's always somebody else's fault. I am
top down.
Yep. I am not responsible for anything I do. Someone made me do it. And that means we have
I was
choice.
just following orders.
Yeah, well, that's another problem in the military. And they did it with My Lai. They proved that not to be right.
Well, this is also true in politics that, I only did what my boss told me to do as an aide or a staffer or whatever those terms are. I only did what my boss told me to do. It was an order. Same idea. They're still in a structured format. That kind of scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, well, what scares me, and, you look at the January 6th, quote, congressional inquiry, end quote. Whether you agree with it or not, and I have to be honest with you, I don't. What scares me is their ability to go forward with an agenda rather than a search for truth. Because if you're having a search for truth, you would have brought the other, you're only presenting one side of the issue. You're not bringing the other side in to talk. You killed the opposition side's choice for who they wanted to put on the panel. You picked people who still thought the way you did. You're going with innuendo rather than facts. None of it will stand in court. And if they can do this now, I'm deadly afraid. We've weaponized the FBI.
We've weaponized the people next door. If you can be turned in for thinking of having an abortion and being rewarded for it, I mean, this is an Orwellian nightmare unfolding. I mean, we're going to be dystopian in months.
Well, it's not so much Orwellian as it's actually communism. Because if you look at it, they're trained in communism. Every 10 people have someone to watch them, and those 10 people, those watchers have someone watching them. So they set up this thing so you're turning your neighbor in because it's the good of the country. And Germany did the same thing for the motherland.
Oh, yeah.
Turn your dad in if they're not supporting what's going on. And that's frightening. And we need to be able to stand up in individual liberties and understand that, I would say the big difference, and this may not go over well with some of my liberal friends, but the big difference between liberals and conservatives is if a conservative doesn't like what you're doing, for the most part, just don't bother me with it. If a liberal doesn't like what's going on, they want to change it. Conservatives will say, if it doesn't bother me directly, don't bother me. And there are some exceptions, but for the most part, you have the liberals saying, I don't like this, so therefore nobody can do it. And that's like, and that does not work. It can't work in this nation. So we need to stand up and we need to say, look, we are here for individual rights. We respect it. We are not a democracy. We are a representative democracy, because if we were a democracy, in reality, it would be a mob rule. Because whatever the majority decides, that would happen. And there'd be no rights for the minority, whatever case it is.
Well, isn't that sort of how the bills work? That you can openly vote on a bill proposed in your state, in your municipality, or at the federal level. So our democratic representation is only for the representatives, like in Senate and Congress. But we do have democratic rule, majority rule, when it comes to things like proposals or
bills, something.
Right.
Yes.
So
But
we do have that.
We don't go back to the people and say every vote, let's vote on making this happen. That's mob rule. We elect somebody who, in our particular area, depending on how what level they're at,
right,
most closely represents what we believe in, and then we trust them as best to follow through with it. But we also have to remember at times compromise is necessary.
And that's the tough part, because compromise is seen as failure as opposed to reaching out and regrouping. We see we seem to see it as a failure now, as a loss rather than cooperation.
And there, I would say the Democrats are better at that than we are, because they will sit back and say, and I give you an example of Obamacare when it was initially passed. President Obama at a meeting, I forget where it was, but I know he spoke, and he said, listen, we didn't get all we want. We got 20 or 30 or 40% of what we wanted. But over the next 10 or 20 years, we'll add another 10 or 15%, and we'll eventually get to where we want to be. The Republicans have to learn that fact and realize that we're not going to get everything up front, but we got to start in a direction and then work on expanding it as best we can. And that's something we really need to learn.
This is why I have smart people like you on the show, because idiots like me just want this utopian, this wonderful, carefree, loving environment that just isn't here right now.
Well, something people, if you know your history, and unfortunately too many people don't, this country has never been 100% anything. When it was formed, it was 50% pro-American or pro-colony and 50% pro-English. We went right through, even the Civil War, you had both sides of the issue. And talking within the North, you had people that were not supporting the battle. There were Southerners that didn't support what was going on also. So it's never 100%. The matter is, again, what's best for the nation to go forward and the majority of the people, and realizing, like the very beginning of this country was born on compromise. The Constitution wouldn't have been put in effect if they did not compromise and say they would pass the Bill of Rights later to make some of the other states who are worried about individual liberties happen. The 3/5 compromise was nothing to do with slavery per se. It was more to do with counting for the House of Representatives. The Northerners didn't want slavery, but they couldn't get rid of it yet. But they also didn't want to give the Southerners extra votes because they didn't want slaves who were not citizens to be counted in the population census. So they compromised at 3/5. Again, not because it's any less of a person, but because it's what they had to do to make the Constitution start, and realizing that somewhere down the road they would have to address that issue and change it, which became 100 years later, it was a civil war. Not even 100 years later, 60, 80 years later, they had a civil war, and it did take care of slavery. So it's been a nation of compromise. It's been a nation of people never agreeing with each other. I'm old enough to remember the battles going on with the Vietnam War. I mean, God, both sides were up in arms about, yes, it's a terrible thing. No, we have to do this. And, in many ways, that generation is still fighting the Vietnam War. We've been fighting each other for 60 years. And we disagreed everywhere. And unfortunately, some of the leadership in the Congress are still members of that battle. But until that generation heads on to the greater rewards, things are never going to change and they stay in power, because we're still fighting that war.
Man, we got a lot of making up to do and a long way to go, but still further than we ever dreamed imaginable. It's really complicated, and it's already, would you believe it, 9:20 in the morning?
I was just looking at my clock, and I'm going to close with one statement, and then I'm going to let you get back to doing your business.
All right.
And, someone said a long time ago, democracy is the worst thing in the world until you compare it to all the other systems.
It's like lawyers. They're all hateful creatures except mine.
Gotcha. All right. Talk to you again.
Well, thank you so much, sir, and we will talk to you tomorrow night on All Things Brunswick at 6 o'clock live right here on the Big Talker.
And we're going to be bringing in representatives of small business to talk about the issues with COVID and the issues with regulations and how they're trying to survive and what they've done to survive. So it should be an interesting show.
It should be. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be right here in my chair.
And I'll be down there co-hosting for a change of pace. So we're looking forward to that.
I appreciate it, man. And with that in mind, I have to hit this magic button. There it is. And let everybody know that we're about to take a bit of a news and spot break. Whoa, I don't know how that happened. That was really cool. So I'm going to take that. And then, ladies and gentlemen, please, during the break, go visit the Big Talker website, bigtalker.live. Download the app for Android and iOS devices. And we will see you in just a minute. Right here on the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. Don't go nowhere. You're tuned in to the Big Talker Network, Wilmington, North Carolina's premier internet station for news and talk radio programming. Find us online at bigtalker.live.
This is Radio Free Dixie. Diversity is a buzzword today, but little is known about the truly diverse nature of the Confederate States of America. The Sons of Confederate Veterans want you to know about the religious diversity in the Old South. Many people think of Dixie as a society based on the Protestant religion. Yet, during the War for Southern Independence, the South's first two heroes, General Beauregard and Admiral Sims, were Roman Catholics, and the Confederate Secretary of State was Jewish. Within the Confederate Army, chaplains of various faiths worked with soldiers of various faiths. The Sons of Confederate Veterans invite you to learn the truth about your Southern heritage and join with us to make Dixie great again. Please visit us at makedixiegreatagain.org. That's makedixiegreatagain.org.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A mysterious substance discovered from Wrightsville to Holden Beach raised concerns for some fishermen. Chatter about a thick brown sheen on top of the water made its rounds among fishermen last week. It was first reported at Lockwood Folly Inlet. According to Captain Kane Faircloth, it's unlike anything he's seen in his 12 years as a boat captain. Even speculating the foreign substance could be an oil slick, which would not be good for fishing charters. After collecting samples for testing, it was discovered it was a bacteria called Trichodesmium, also known as sea sawdust. Researchers did confirm the algae isn't toxic to humans or animals in an ocean setting. A man is dead and a family is looking for answers after a crash in Brunswick County Friday night. It happened around 7:30 on Holden Beach Road near Charlotte. According to the State Highway Patrol, a car being driven by Tyrants Draquan Benbow was being pursued by Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. Benbow lost control of the car, hit a deputy's cruiser, then crashed into an oncoming vehicle head-on, causing both to flip. Benbow was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 adults and 3 children in the other vehicle were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Highway Patrol says more details on the crash are expected to be released once the investigation is complete. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says more information related to the initial cause of the pursuit will be shared at a later date. We have an alert for Wilmington drivers. There is a traffic shift on Market Street as crews are installing a stormwater pipe. The 2-way left turn lane will be closed to traffic between Ogden Fire State and Brief Road. The southbound lanes will be shifted over 1 lane. This will allow crews to work on the outside southbound lane. The northbound lanes will not be impacted. That shift will be in place for about 2 weeks. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for it. Mostly cloudy skies in store for us, and that's going to keep our temperatures on the cooler side, a few degrees below the average. We'll get into the middle 80s away from the coast, low to middle 80s along the immediate coastline. East-facing beaches today have a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out to the beach. Overall, only a small chance for isolated showers and storms to develop this afternoon as our overnight lows drop down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Folks, you must visit Angie's Fresh Produce. 4447 Long Beach Road, Southport. Beautiful fresh produce at a great price. Angie's has just about every vegetable you want. In-store shopping and pickup, and all wheelchair accessible. Call Angie's Fresh Produce at 910-477-9068.
Tune in to the WWAY News at 6 p.m.
Thank you for joining us tonight for your News at 6. I'm Hannah Patrick.
I'm Randy Aldridge. We want to get straight to our WWAY team coverage of last night.
For the biggest and most compelling stories that make a difference.
On the scene shortly after the blaze began and has the story now.
Cleveland is one of the fastest growing towns in the country.
First court appearance this morning in Pender County.
WWAY News at 6 p.m. This is the place.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Hey, welcome back to the Big Talker, the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad right here on the Big Talker Network. Please visit the website at bigtalker.live. Download the app for Android and iOS devices. I promise you'll love it. It's a way of life. Let's see, what other cool things can I tell you about? Oh, the email link so you can send us any comments, questions, concerns, critiques, or compliments you may have. We can't improve without your help, assistance, guidance, input, and feedback. So, one of those feedbacks would be to make sure everybody goes to the Facebook page of the Chad Adams Show and sends lots of messages encouraging my friend, Mr. Chad Adams. Sorry, I need my coffee. To join us on the mornings. Then we will have much smarter conversations. I'm doing what I can with what I got, but believe me, more smart people makes the show a whole lot better. As has been, previously experienced. And hopefully we get to experience here again in a moment with another one of our smart guests who had a great show on this morning. Talking about economics. Let's see, what else is about the website? Schedule of content. You can get all the podcasts, the videos at the touch of your finger. It's an amazing, amazing app. It's also why we went all digital, because it is that cool. That's why we have Yael Osowski. Not only does he do the Consumer Choice Radio program, which immediately follows this one, with premiere episodes dropping on Saturday mornings. Let's see. No, I want that one. It's good to have him on board because he is very, very smart. He's got like the cryptocurrency thing going down, and he knows exactly what's happening. In fact, I would love to get him on the show sometime soon so we can even talk about the cryptocurrency, the volatility and future of cryptocurrency and how it relates to you, me, and the rest of the world. So we may have to work on that, see if we can't get him in here. That's another one of those conversations. The economic conversation this morning. I remember the guy's name. I know I do. I just have to look it up. Jericho Hill, talking about practical economics of what's going on, and I'm not entirely sure I understood a lot of it. Hopefully we can get him in here to help me unpack some of it. Until then, I guess I have to fill in some news bits here. I know I have a couple more. Let's see. Oh, we sort of chatted on this one a couple days ago. Let's see. Apparently there's been some development here. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Stand by. Oh, no. No, sorry. They're just milking it. Yeah, it's the same story. They didn't even bother to to rearrange it in any way. So no, the $45 you owe me. The lady had taken her boyfriend picture onto the whatever. That was pretty. Now this is the one I meant. ABC News. What do I have here? ABC News by Juju Chang, Odd Sochet, Karen Weinberg, John Capel, and Ivan Pereira. I don't know. Anyway, that guy, John Hinckley Jr., seeks forgiveness for shooting Reagan and the presidential entourage. I'm not sure they can forgive me, and I probably wouldn't even blame them. More than 40 years after he shot President Ronald Reagan and 3 others, John Hinckley Jr. said he's filled with remorse over his action, but he's ready to move forward with his life. Yeah, because you're still alive and standing and not perforated. Sorry, continuing. Hinckley, 67, spoke with Nightline co-anchor Juju Chang 2 weeks after he was released from federal supervision and apologized to the families of his victims. I'm truly sorry, I really am, he told Nightline. I'm not sure they can forgive me, and I probably wouldn't even blame them. Well, that's some insight. While some of those close to Reagan are reluctant to accept Hinckley's olive branch, he said he's committed to proving to the world that he's a changed and better man, and he supports laws that would prohibit others with mental health issues from getting access to guns. Yeah. He supports laws that would prohibit others with mental health issues from getting access to guns. On March 30, 1981, Hinckley, then 25, shot Reagan, police officer Thomas Delahanty, Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy, and press secretary James Brady outside the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C., where Reagan had just delivered a speech to the AFL-CIO. All 4 men survived. Reagan, however, was hospitalized for 12 days. Brady, who was shot in the head, was left with brain damage and was confined to a wheelchair after the incident. Delahanty developed permanent nerve damage to his left arm. McCarthy was also hospitalized and was the first victim to be discharged. Brady, who went on to become a staunch gun control advocate as the co-founder of the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence, died in 2014. Although the medical examiner ruled the death was a homicide and the case of death to be a gunshot wound and its health consequences, Hinckley was not charged in Brady's death. Hinckley was arrested shortly after the shooting and charged with the attempted assassination. He told investigators that he opened fire on the president to impress actress Jodie Foster. He told Nightline that he had no ill will against Reagan and called him a good, nice man who thought was a good president. Hinckley told Nightline that he was severely depressed, estranged from his family, and in full despair when he plotted to shoot the president, which would imply premeditation. It was in ways like a suicide attempt, just saying, this is it, this is the end of my life, he said. Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity a year later in a trial jury and ordered to be confined at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C. under psychiatric care. In 2016, he was allowed to leave the hospital into the care of his mother, and with heavy restrictions, including a prohibition on him owning a gun or contacting any of his victims, their families, or Jodie Foster. In September 2021, a federal judge okayed Hinckley's unconditional release, which went into effect June 15. Although he's barred from speaking with his victims, Hinckley told ABC News that he's been remorseful for years and felt sad that his actions led to Brady's years of pain. He shared that he prays every night that the Brady family has a good life. If I could take it back, I surely would, he said. Hinckley said he's in favor of background checks and waiting periods to obtain a gun, especially with regard to people who are suffering, which were policies that were ushered in by the Brady Law. They left something out there with regard to people who are suffering mental issues, I guess. I think there are too many guns in America, he said. President Reagan publicly forgave Hinckley for the assassination attempt. But at least one member of the Reagan's family has not forgiven him. Patty Davis, Reagan's daughter, published an op-ed in the Washington Post in September after the judge made the order to release Hinckley, and she said she feared he would contact her. I understand struggling for forgiveness, but it's like peering out from between the prison bars. I don't believe that John Hinckley feels remorse. Narcissists rarely do, she wrote. Danny Spriggs, a Secret Service agent on Reagan's detail when the shooting happened, told ABC News that he also doesn't accept Hinckley's apology. Quote, I don't think that sufficient accountability has been rendered in this particular case, he said. I wish him well. The bottom line is those words are easy said, and now it depends on his actions. Hinckley contended that he's not the same man he was in 1981. He told Nightline that in his 41 years of therapy, he has worked hard to overcome his illness and is confident he will stay on track. His medical team at St. Elizabeth's and the judge who released him seem to agree. Hinckley has voluntarily taken... Oh, look at that. I have to turn my head a whole 270 degrees to make this thing happen. All right. Hinckley has voluntarily been taking his anti-anxiety medication and antipsychotic medication, continues to get therapy, and says he has a sound support system with his siblings. I have just a great mindset now that I don't have the depression that I had, I don't have the isolation that I had, and I just really feel good about things now. That's Mr. John Hinckley, who's probably not as cool as our next guest, Mr. Andrew Donaldson from Ordinary-Times. Good morning, sir. How are you doing? Oh, he's gone silent, hitting the mute button. You with me? Uh-oh, you're not hearing me, are you? This is very, very sad, because this man is very, very smart, and I would like him to be on my deal, and I don't know why he's not. So, I'm going to do a little work here and find out why he is not hearing me. Check 1, 2. Yeah, it should be going out everywhere. And let me see if I haven't screwed something up here. Another thing I thought was awesome is that your boy was trying to do a rock and roll show shortly after he was released. And apparently they shut it down. They didn't want it to... Well, it's working on this end. Is that working any better for you, sir? Nope, I guess not. Check 1, 2. This is really strange. All right, so I missed a break earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and take that break now, and when we come back...
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A mysterious substance discovered from Wrightsville to Holden Beach raised concerns for some fishermen. Chatter about a thick brown sheen on top of the water made its rounds among fishermen last week. It was first reported at Lockwood Folly Inlet. According to Captain Kane Faircloth, it's unlike anything he's seen in his 12 years as a boat captain, even speculating the foreign substance could be an oil slick, which would not be good for fishing charters. After collecting samples for testing, it was discovered it was a bacteria called Trichodesmium, also known as sea sawdust. Researchers did confirm the algae isn't toxic to humans or animals in an ocean setting. A man is dead and a family is looking for answers after a crash in Brunswick County Friday night. It happened around 7:30 on Holden Beach Road near Charlotte. According to the State Highway Patrol, a car being driven by Tyrants Draquan Benbow was being pursued by Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. Benbow lost control of the car, hit a deputy's cruiser, then crashed into an oncoming vehicle head-on, causing both to flip. Benbow was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 adults and 3 children in the other vehicle were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Highway Patrol says more details on the crash are expected to be released once the investigation is complete. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says more information related to the initial cause of the pursuit will be shared at a later date. We have an alert for Wilmington drivers. There is a traffic shift on Market Street as crews are installing a stormwater pipe. The two-way left turn lane will be closed to traffic between Ogden Fire State and Brief Road. The southbound lanes will be shifted over one lane. This will allow crews to work on the outside southbound lane. The northbound lanes will not be impacted. That shift will be in place for about 2 weeks. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for it. Mostly cloudy skies in store for us, and that's going to keep our temperatures on the cooler side, a few degrees below the average. We'll get into the middle 80s away from the coast, low to middle 80s along the immediate coastline. East-facing beaches today have a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out to the beach. Overall, only a small chance for isolated showers and storms to develop this afternoon as our overnight lows drop down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, located at 8210 River Road, Southport, is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, with the Tackle Box open Monday through Saturday, 7 to 6. Marine Service Pro is a full Suzuki and Tohatsu dealership. They deal in pre-owned boats, full service and repair, with certified technicians in all engines, and fiberglass specialists. The Tackle Box offers fresh local seafood, live bait, a tackle shop, and fish packing and shipping. They also offer a full-service U-Haul dealership. Spend time with Leon or Jenny for one-stop shopping at Marine Service Pro and the Tackle Box Seafood, 8210 River Road, Southport.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, where breaking news is the most important. Who am I kidding? Laughing at people is the most important thing here on the Asylum. And this morning we get to laugh at John Hinckley Jr., spending 41 years of therapy in a state hospital, and now he's out dancing on Nightline, talking about his remorsefulness. I'm not sure. That's why we have smart people like Andrew. What do you think about this?
I kind of miss when Nightline was just Ted Koppel talking to people, and covering.
Now it wasn't
the
like
news.
a MTV version of Nightline. What about John Hinckley's rock and roll release concert, his homecoming or his comeback tour?
I've said this. I'm so torn on the Hinckley thing because on the one hand, I've always advocated for mental health care, and we should, have criminal justice reform and let people, reform themselves and come back. On the other hand, I think when you shoot a sitting U.S. president and try to assassinate him to impress your theoretical girlfriend, maybe that's one of those things we just shouldn't let people come back from. At least not the polite society. I'm not saying we should,
Well, somebody agreed with you that they
used to
did
be
not
an
go ahead
executed-
with the concert. They canceled that.
Well, because of security concerns, which is really, really funny. It's like you're putting an assassin on the stage. Look, I get it that he's like no longer a threat to society or whatever. I still think there's probably some way that they could do this without him being a big spectacle public figure. The problem, of course, is he's on the internet. He has a YouTube channel. He has social media, and you're going to have people that are going to flock to him because he's a look. It's like a sideshow at the circus. You usually don't get to interact with a presidential assassin, because number one, they almost never survive, and if they do survive, they're executed. But this guy, he's the rarest of the rare breeds.
He's dancing
for people
on
who do
Nightline.
stuff like that. Shame on Nightline, number one. Like, at some point, media should be responsible and be like, okay, we don't need to promulgate this person. Hinckley would be one of those guys. I don't guess I terribly
Viewership
wish
went
him-
up.
I guess I don't. Well, yeah, usually they just assassinate their ratings. But I don't really wish the guy ill. I mean, I don't want him, beaten to death with a spoon or anything. But at the same time, I get it. You did your 40 years or 30
You already
years
had
or
your 15
whatever.
minutes.
more than that. I get it. I think this is one of those where society-wise, everybody should just do some good old-fashioned shunning. But they're not going to because, this would be where you just shun somebody and be like, yeah, you did your time and whatever, but we don't want anything to do with you. But that's not the world we live in.
I have a quote for you. This is John Hinckley John Hinckley.
If you say John Hinckley Winkley, I'm signing off. We don't have rules, but we have standards, man.
Yes, John Hinckley Jr. quoted as saying on Nightline, quote, "I think there are too many guns in America," end quote. Roll that one up for me if you could. I got more quotes from him from Nightline if you're interested.
Oh, God.
If I could take it back, I surely would. And he considers Reagan a good, nice man who thought was a good president.
Remember, he didn't just shoot Reagan. He paralyzed and eventually killed James Brady.
Yep.
Because of the health issues that he incurred. And James Brady died, relatively young age. I think he was in his early 60s. He paralyzed James Brady. He could have killed a lot of other people with the way he was indiscriminately shooting. He came within an inch, literally an inch, of killing Reagan. The only thing that saved Reagan was when the agent threw him into the car. The bullet that hit Reagan, I can't remember this, double check me, but I think the bullet that hit him actually ricocheted off the door of the limo and hit Reagan. And the agent, there's a famous photo, the agent's like falling on top of Reagan into the backseat of the car, just diving into the car with him when the first shot went out. Because the first shot hit James Brady. So, you were within an inch of Reagan getting assassinated. And if you ever go back and review that, or there's a really good HBO movie about it, where Richard Dreyfuss plays, I can't remember his name, Alexander Hagen. The chaos that involved the first couple of days after Reagan's shooting, the chain of command, things like this. It was bad. Remember, the Soviet Union Cold War is going full tilt boogie. This was a bad situation, even outside of Reagan possibly dying. But the doctors at the hospital, they didn't disclose it till years later. He was literally an inch away from dying. Like if that bullet was over just a hair more, he would have died before he ever got to GW. So, he paralyzed James Brady. So people saying, well, he did his time and whatever. It's like, well, James Brady did his time too. Where's his justice? I see all sides of this. I think the answer here is, okay, 40. I have a hard time. I don't like it. I have a hard time arguing against somebody that did almost 40 years of incarceration, even though I understand it was, mental health care more than hard prison time. 40 years is still a long time. So, okay, I can live with that part of it, but I think society should shun this individual.
I got 2 more bits for you in the 4 minutes I have left with you.
Oh my God, you're sticking to a time schedule. I'm so proud.
I have to, because you're the one.
Put that in the baby book.
That you have the heart out on that. He supports laws that would prohibit others with mental health issues from getting access to guns.
See, this would be where he could do something productive instead of dancing and doing his little singer-songwriter routine. Here's something where he could do something productive authoritatively and talk about that. Because if your line's going to be
has weight of some sort.
If your line's going to be, I would have never done the crime I would have done if I would have had proper mental health care. Okay, then trot him out. I can bite down and tolerate. Well, I'm not going to get behind it, but I can tolerate it. Like, at least you're doing something productive.
Right. I was wondering if that's not going to be his, community service thing where he goes on the road and charges $60,000 for a 15-minute speech. Oh, wait, that's the politicos that do that. Anyway.
Well, remember, public speech, public speaking fees in politics is just a socially acceptable way to launder money into campaigns.
Oh, is that how it's done?
Correct.
Oh, I need to be a
Hillary
paid speaker.
Hillary Clinton isn't really worth $150,000 a pop to speak. That's them donating money to her by other means. I'm just picking on her. Everybody, the Republicans do it too. Everybody calm down.
They all do it.
That one was just
local, state, whatever.
Yeah, speaking fees are socially acceptable money laundering to pay people off. That's all it is.
2016, John Hinckley Jr. was allowed to leave the hospital into the care of his mother, and with heavy restrictions, including a prohibition on him owning a gun or contacting any of his victims, their families, or Jodie Foster.
because people that don't remember this, he was enamored with Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver, and that's why he shot Reagan, was to get Jodie Foster's attention.
And
of course, we found out later on she was, she's gay, so he really bargained up the wrong tree in multiple levels, but there it is.
In September 2021, a federal judge okayed Hinckley's unconditional release, which went into effect on June 15.
Now, we need to note here, though, he was on this like supervised partial release thing for, I
5
think,
years.
Yeah, it was a long time. Like
over 5 years.
Whatever he had the hoops to jump through, he did. I've got to
while
be fair
living
here.
with his mom.
Yeah, he jumped through all the hoops that they put in front of him. So this wasn't like one of those things where they just arbitrarily let him go.
Wait a minute. So he would have been, how old is he? Like, he was 25 at the time, so he's in his 60s, and then released into the care of his mom. How the hell do you release this person into the care of a geriatric person who can't even go to the bathroom by themselves? And we're like, I mean, she's got to be in her 90s.
Hold on, let's not disperse Mrs. Hinckley. We don't know nothing about her. She may be a fine person.
Okay.
Her incontivity is none of our business. Let's not go throwing dispersions here. We're all going to get there one day, by the way, folks.
Right, but I'm just saying, if he's in his 60s,
well, I mean, that's the stand. Well, the standard is because in those situations they have to be released to somebody that's responsible for them, so it would make sense. But yeah, I mean, she's got to be in her 80s at least.
At least,
I would think so.
And she's probably mandatorily retired.
Again, he's Hinckley. Who else is going to hey, can you sign off on this guy that shot the president and, bet your life that he's going to bet? It's not like anybody else is going to get him off that job.
Or a cousin is going to take him in. Hey, we'll give you a job gutting fish. So that's the ending story I had to cover you. You are now on your way out the door, and I appreciate the time you did have this morning.
Sorry, but I ain't even gonna lie. I got up this morning, did the show, and I had to lay back down for a while. So
not a problem.
I slept in. Not even gonna lie about it.
Well, I appreciate.
But we're up and going, and we've got a ton of stuff. Great hotel. We had a special edition hotel over the weekend. If you missed it, we recapped all the Elon Musk Twitter stuff. We did another special edition best of episode. It's really good. Twice on Sunday was loaded. How long did that thing end up being? Like 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. Which is fine.
It's insane. Twice on Sunday was loaded. We have a great week of guests coming up. Jericho Hill today. Do not miss it. We talk economics in plain language using Bojangles. I'm not joking. Make sure you watch the YouTube because we actually did some fancy graphics. I even faded them. I'm so proud of myself. Do not miss Hertel today. It is a great episode. We have fantastic guests this week. Sarah Stoke is back on the program talking first ladies and history. Jeffrey Leese is on the show. We're going to talk gas prices. Biden using the Defense Act to do stuff, Defense Production Act to do stuff with fuel. We're going to talk about that with a guest. Also, Eloise Amidro is back on the show. We're going to talk pension funds and Medicare. Clock's ticking, folks. 2026, 26, 27, 2030. This baby going to blow up somewhere in there. We're going to talk about it. Great week coming up on Heard Tell. Also working on getting a lawyer in. We're going to talk about rights, like where they really come from. Because all this debate over abortion, all this debate over guns, all this debate over free speech, you're really debating rights. So we should probably just talk about rights, right? Mm-hmm. Like where they come from. It's a debate. Do we have natural rights? Do we have critical law theory rights? Where do these rights come from? We're going to hash it out with one of the smartest guys I know. Hopefully have that recorded sometime this week. Great stuff on Heard Tell, building strength upon strength. The podcast numbers. I took like 10 days off when I got sick in the hospital, and our numbers are still great. Y'all are just amazing. So make sure you're sharing it, and it's good. Yeah, that Elon Musk one. I replay what I said the day after that happened. What I said might happen. Just go. It's about a 4-minute clip. You know what I mean? I'll send it to TK. He can put it on the Facebook page as a standalone. Listen to what I said the day it happened. This is all the way back in April. I'm not saying I told you so. I'm not saying I'm tooting my own horn, but toot toot. Told y'all this wasn't going to happen. Nobody wanted to listen to me.
There was an EF moment. There was an EF Hutton moment, and y'all missed it.
This was always, real quick, I got to get off here. This was always a math problem. There's no way he could buy Twitter without taking the money from Tesla and the institutional investors. I'm not talking about people that stock trade. I'm talking about the investors that matter. At Tesla, we're never going to let that happen because it would have tanked Tesla to take that amount of money out of it. So those are the people that even Elon Musk has to listen to. This was always a math problem. The stuff about the bots is noise. Excuse me. This has always been. He had to take money from Tesla to buy Twitter, and they were never going to allow it. And everything else is smokescreen to get him back out of the deal because he wrote a check with his mouth that his Tesla backside could not cash. And here we are. They're going to, by the way, this court stuff, all they're doing is negotiating the settlement fee because there's $1 billion retainer on the deal. They'll settle it for about they're going to dance around each other in court, and then they're going to pick a number and they're going to settle. It'll be about a third of that. Look for the settlement to be somewhere in the $200 to $400 million range plus options and things like that. That's where this is going.
Just for being an idiot. And we were going to find out about
the truck.
We were going to find out about the twins no matter what. So he didn't need to go through all this Twitter insanity just for us to discover he has undisclosed twins.
That would be children 7 and 8 for those of you scoring at home. Between him and Herschel Walker, they have a football team. I'll talk to you later, buddy. Have a great day.
We'll see you next time, man. Thanks again for your time. Get out of here. That was Mr. Andrew Donaldson from the Ordinary-Times. You can contact him on the Twitter at 4 for the Fire. One of the better, phenomenal contributor. I mean, we have great contributors here, and his content is certainly far more in depth when it comes to things like culture, politics, economics, because he knows these people. He pulls them into the conversation and then, just gooses them for all the information they can get. Right? What's going on? Who's involved? What is this? Why do we care? Why is this a problem? That sort of thing. And I didn't even get a chance to bounce some of the real questions off of him. He is limited in his time. But doing what he can with what he got. See, where am I? I have more stories to go, but I have to do some communication stuff first. And there it goes. I had one more story. Where'd you go? Coming out of Indy100.com, this is just, I find this to be nuts. Woman's neighbor leaves note complaining about her having loud animal sex during the day. Yeah. So, Becca Monaghan, that's right. Awkward interaction with neighbors are certainly not uncommon, but this got to be one to top them all. Taking to TikTok, Amber was left mortified when an angry neighbor left a note slamming her loud bedroom antics. She shared her horror with the platform, leaving 1.2 million viewers with secondhand embarrassment. It's official. I can never leave my house again, Amber wrote before revealing the critical note, handwritten on a crumpled piece of paper. If you're going to have animal sex during the middle of the day, please close your bloody windows, it read, and in true British style, they signed off the request with ta. Many people found the ordeal quite amusing, with one accusing the neighbor of being jealous, saying, "Why are they peeping through your windows? Maybe just jelly." Another witty TikToker added, would she have preferred you do it in the middle of the night? I mean, if it's going to be loud, competing with traffic. Anyway, meanwhile, Amber's viral clip opened the comments up to some of the TikTokers' own wild sexual encounters, and they did not hold back. My neighbor called police on us once. One alleged it was so embarrassing they thought that I'm being murdered because of how I screamed. Happened to us in like 3 different homes. Always tell them to close their own windows, wrote a second, while one added they can no longer order food from their favorite takeaway because the delivery driver saw us once. See what I'm saying? Human nature, undefeated. The grammar police were also out in full force, with many comments highlighting the misspelling of "you are." One suggested to throw a note back with "your" on it, corrected, while another mirrored the idea and said to change in red pen and ask them to resubmit. That would be awesome. Just escalate this thing, right? And of course, the other part of it is that anybody who, well, if you're going to make noise, you draw attention to yourself. And if you're trying not to draw attention to yourself, that's not the way to do it. Okay? Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm not saying, like, squelch your enthusiasm, but maybe it would be in your best interest to, you know, sort of tone it down a little, maybe? Yeah, you know, just having a thought. It could be a problem. It very well could be a problem. But, you know, I'm still not entirely sure how all of this works. Working on it. With that in mind, you know what? I think I done it. Oh yeah, hey. Thanks for another wonderful morning here at the Asylum on a bright and beautiful Monday morning. I tell you what, we're going to do it again tomorrow, so thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks again to Andrew Donaldson from Ordinary Times and Bill Moore from the Brunswick County GOP. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks, bye. You're tuned in to the Big Talker Network, Wilmington, North Carolina's premier internet station for news and talk radio programming. Find us online at bigtalker.live.
Folks, you know you're all looking for that special gift. Lines are long, traffic is frustrating, supply chains in the news. Just take a deep breath. If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come by Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. Avoid the traffic, the lines, the frustration, and get that extraordinary and special gift. From high-end diamond rings to Larimar, from necklaces to bracelets, watches, and unique jewelry. And you also get one-on-one service with their experienced staff. Great prices now, just in time for the holidays. Come by and check out Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive.
Wake up to Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
And good morning, Carolina. It is a very busy news morning today. I'm Donna Gregory.
And I'm Jeff Rivenbark. We're glad you're starting your Tuesday with us.
Be prepared and ready to go for the day ahead.
For the time being, we are dry and quiet, but we are dealing with some patchy fog.
And catch up with the overnight news you need to know before heading out the door.
We'll have more details and more live coverage in just a few moments.
Get up early for Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. A mysterious substance discovered from Wrightsville to Holden Beach raised concerns for some fishermen. Chatter about a thick brown sheen on top of the water made its rounds among fishermen last week. It was first reported at Lockwood Folly Inlet. According to Captain Kane Faircloth, it's unlike anything he's seen in his 12 years as a boat captain. He's been speculating the foreign substance could be an oil slick, which would not be good for fishing charters. After collecting samples for testing, it was discovered it was a bacteria called Trichodesmium, also known as sea sawdust. Researchers did confirm the algae isn't toxic to humans or animals in an ocean setting. A man is dead and a family is looking for answers after a crash in Brunswick County Friday night. It happened around 7:30 on Holden Beach Road near Charlotte. According to the State Highway Patrol, a car being driven by Tyrants Draquan Benbow was being pursued by Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. Benbow lost control of the car, hit a deputy's cruiser, then crashed into an oncoming vehicle head-on, causing both to flip. Benbow was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 adults and 3 children in the other vehicle were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Highway Patrol says more details on the crash are expected to be released once the investigation is complete. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office says more information related to the initial cause of the pursuit will be shared at a later date. We have an alert for Wilmington drivers. There is a traffic shift on Market Street as crews are installing a stormwater pipe. The 2-way left turn lane will be closed to traffic between Ogden, Fire, State, and Brief Road. The southbound lanes will be shifted over 1 lane. This will allow crews to work on the outside southbound lane. The northbound lanes will not be impacted. That shift will be in place for about 2 weeks. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for mostly cloudy skies in store for us. And that's going to keep our temperatures on the cooler side, a few degrees below the average. We'll get into the middle 80s away from the coast, low to middle 80s along the immediate coastline. East-facing beaches today have a moderate risk for rip currents, so do keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out to the beach. Overall, only a small chance for isolated showers and storms to develop this afternoon as our overnight lows drop down to the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAY-TV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Join Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Hello and welcome to a nice joint production of Consumer Choice Radio and the Consumer Podcast. We're broadcasting on the radio, on podcast devices, thanks to Podcasting 2.0 and right there in your pocket. I am a part of the trio here today, Yael Ossowski, broadcasting back from, I guess, a little bit of an Italian holiday in the studio, and I'm joined by my trusty colleague, David Clement in Toronto. David, how goes it?
No, it's going well. It's going well. No complaints here. You were in Italy. I had a nice week away in Muskoka enjoying the wonders of cottage country here in Ontario. So rested, relaxed, did my first triathlon last week. Very excited about that. So things are good. Things are good. And we also have Bill Wirtz on the line here.
Indeed. We have our colleague Bill Wirtz. He's the host of the Consumer Podcast, which you can also subscribe to. Or if you guys are Bill's listeners, thank you for tuning in to Consumer Choice Radio. Bill, back at the mic. You also took a little bit of vacation recently.
Well, thanks for doing this together, guys, first of all. And this is actually episode 80 of the Consumer Podcast. So trying to catch up with you guys, but you're doing it every week, so it's really hard to catch up, actually. I was away a bit. I was in the United States trying out all the foods that presumably will poison us if we import them to Europe. So I'm still alive, so there seems to be nothing to this rumor.
Wow. Boost. This guy's on message. Doesn't matter where he goes. He keeps to the line. So way to go. So you had been to the U.S. Before, Bill, but was this the first time you'd visited the middle of the country?
Yes, I was in Chicago and then in Denver, and first time in both places. And I think so. Denver to me felt more of what I thought the U.S. was supposed to look like in a way, because the large, very large streets, the parking lots everywhere, everything is very car heavy. And in Chicago, I was actually able to use a bicycle. So there, the city seems to be transitioning into more of sort of a pedestrian, cycling friendly sort of situation. Which if you spend most of your time in Amsterdam, it gets very strange to be so heavily reliant on the car.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. That's kind of the price you pay for living out in the West. But there's a reason that Colorado was the setting of Galt's Gulch in Atlas Shrugged. For those of you who read that, it was the pioneer territory, right? There was nothing to conquer out there, and or there's everything to conquer out there. And now it's a nice little bustling metropolis. I like Denver a lot. Did you get over to Boulder by any chance?
I did not. I keep hearing about it in usually songs, but it wasn't too far. But then again, if you're without a car, then walking to Boulder would probably not have been an option. But maybe next time.
Very cool. So, Bill, you brought us already a topic talking about the food, the agriculture in the United States. You got to taste the food, those beautiful, delicious GMOs you can't get elsewhere. I guess we can start with that, and then I've got a couple of things here in the rundown. If you guys want to look at that, and then we can go from there. So, tell us the culinary experience that you had.
So the portion sizes will never cease to amaze me. This was the fourth time I was in the United States, and each time I order something, you make this mistake. You would, two people as a couple, you're ordering something, and then you think each ordered their own. But essentially, what you have to do is just share a plate because the portions are so large. And it seems that Americans just sort of approach this from a perspective of like, we'll have the rest for dinner because everybody gets the rest of the food to go. It's not everybody finishes their plate, so that's not how they do it. And I think that's very strange. Also,
it's a strange world out there.
Exactly, it is. Thanks, Bernie. And then also what I can't wrap my head around is the tipping culture. I mean, that is just like making me responsible for what people are being paid. I find that slightly strange because I don't exactly know where I'm supposed to tip and how much of it. I don't know. Do you guys have, David, do you guys have that in Canada as well? How do you have to establish sort of a golden rule what you do?
So yeah, I mean, there is tipping culture here in Canada. I'd say standard is like 15%. It can go as high as 20%. Depending on how good the service is. I'm unclear on whether tipping culture is good, because I do somewhat like the service incentive that you get in North America, where people kind of go above and beyond because they know that there's a little bit of extra money that's dependent on it, and so that's a positive thing. But at the same time, like you said, Bill, it does put a lot of pressure on you. And then I have seen some scenarios where people tip low, and then like the manager of the restaurant or the server is like, "Hey, was something wrong? Like, did we not do a good enough job?" Which could certainly be awkward.
Wow. That's
usually
awkward.
Usually the manager doesn't usually step in on behalf of the server, but yeah, I think that's probably happened.
I was also wondering, I got the feeling that the waiters do come back to the table a lot to ask if we want more things, not just because they're friendly, but because you tip in percentages. There's sort of an incentive to sell you as much as possible, no?
Well, I guess now I'll have to give you a little lesson from the kitchen, Bill, because I was a waiter there for a couple years. You obviously have the incentive to upsell as much as possible. So not drinking water. I need to get you on soda. I need to get you a beer. How about a cocktail? I need you to get that appetizer. Because then instead of your bill being, $19, like if I can get up to $45, then I know I'm going to get more. And the history of it is interesting too, because it was in French, we say pourboire, and the same with German, Trinkgeld, drink money. And like the whole history of it back in the day was that you're out at the pub, you're drinking, you're having fun, but the server, the waiter, he's having to work. So you gave him a little bit so he could enjoy a beer, in his off time.
Yeah, one of the things you'll notice, I don't know if you ordered any burgers while you were out. You sit down at a restaurant and you order a burger, and you'd be like, "Oh, and would you like bacon?" And you're like, "Oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe I do." And there's a bit of an extra charge. "What about cheese?" And you're like, "Yeah, you know what? I would like some cheese." And next thing you know, you've added $4 to your burger. So you do see a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's why people hear my accent whenever I'm in a certain area, and they love to see that American going around Europe, because the expectation is you're going to be leaving big tips for everybody. So speaking of tips, I'll tell you where they did not leave any tips. At the G7 in Munich, Germany. I wanted to talk about this a little bit, because most people don't really cover these large political sort of meetings. Who knows really what's happening there? But we got more of an insight here. We got a couple of clips that came from some of the interviews that the world leaders were doing. So this is the major, G7 countries. We saw Justin Trudeau doing some interviews, Boris Johnson, obviously Joe Biden. Probably couldn't get him for an interview. He was kind of walking off. But we do have some very interesting clips that came out of that. And there was a couple interesting insights. Apparently, they're all little mini comedians, because this is the ongoing trend in our society, guys. Don't you know that if you want good political comedy, you just listen to politicians. But if you want, great, amazing political analysis and insights, you listen to comedy and comedians on late night television. So I don't know if we'll be able to hear this clip. This is the one that Bill sent in. This is the G7 leader sitting down and kind of joking about making a Putin shirtless photo. Yeah, probably terrible quality for the podcast and radio show here, but yeah, it's all the focus on what's happening with Russia, and then we also have this nice little clip between Macron and Biden. I'm pretty sure he did not intend to have this being recorded, but there's a clip of Macron going up to Biden and telling him about our oil partners in the Middle East. Let's see if we can hear this. It's a little better to understand.
Joe, you predicted it for a while. Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you. With your advice, I took the commission to go and do this. So I call for increasing the production.
So you probably can't hear it too much, but he's talking about, essentially he talked to the leader of the United Arab Emirates, who had talked to the Saudis, basically saying that they're pretty much at peak capacity. They can't really put out any more barrels. And in the end, he gives a nice little nudge to Joe, being like, yeah, it'd be great to have some American oil. You guys can export to help out the world there a little bit.
So,
what do you guys think of that clip?
I don't think, by the way, that Macron did this mistakenly. I mean, the journalists are just a couple of meters away. I think this was done on purpose to put pressure on, is for people to genuinely hear this. And again, you can find the videos online with the subtitles, and it's very interesting how Macron talks to Biden about this and how Biden actually tries to get out of the conversation, probably aware that there are cameras and microphones around. So I do think this was...
You think he's that aware, Bill?
I'd like to give him credit for probably trying to avoid this conversation, as most politicians probably would like to, especially on this issue. So I do think Macron was trying to make a point here that there's a genuine need for American exports when it comes to oil, and I think the numbers really back that up. And Macron also has sort of this face of, well, we're kind of at the end of the road here in terms of our options if sort of the Emirates and the Saudis can't deliver.
Yeah, it was very much like we need you now, Joe. We need you to pull through here. Please save the day. And the thing is, in the U.S. context, is the back and forth I've seen. I mean, you have progressives being like, wow, the oil companies have record profits, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, this isn't just like turning on the taps per se. There's like infrastructure spending that needs to happen, and I think on some side of the industry they're saying, okay, but we need certainty that like you're also not going to end our industry in the next 10 years like you campaigned on, because we're not going to dump billions of dollars into expanding all of this only for you to turn off the taps when the conflict. The invasion in Ukraine is over, and let's say the Ukrainians have won, or Russia retreats, or whatever the end result is, or the Europeans are fully off of Russian gas. Like, what happens next? And I don't think the Biden administration has given them enough certainty to be like, okay, forget what we said. That was prior to this disaster. We're in a new world here, and we're going to regulate accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a strong point. I was going to play a clip, David, but you weren't there, about from Jennifer Granholm, who is the Secretary of Energy in the U.S., who's the one who did campaign against the oil companies, oil exploration. Also was born in Canada, David. I didn't know that, but she's a Canadian citizen as well, and she's
interesting.
Yeah, big position. She's a BC gal.
So what you're saying is we are not sending our best.
They're not sending their best.
We are not sending our best. I mean, between her and then on the Republican side, David Frum, we are not sending our best, apparently.
Yeah, I could have said Ted Cruz, but I looked into it. There have been 22 American politicians who were born in Canada. It's kind of interesting. There's a couple of reps as well, a couple of current House reps. Most of them born to American parents. So really, Jennifer Granholm is the only, pure dyed-in-the-wool Canadian. So the G7 stuff still going on. I'm sure there'll be some strange announcements, some energy stuff that'll be talked about. I know I wrote an article really hoping that Joe Biden would turn into the gas salesman, the oil salesman now, because the war is still going on, and the inflationary pressures, particularly in the energy markets, are not looking good. Probably my energy rates are going to raise here very soon, which I'm not happy about. And it's not looking good. I don't know, Bill, if you got any closing thoughts here before we go to break.
Well, I do think, you tell us how much time we have before the break, but I did find it interesting that all the talk about oil is being had while the leaders are flying up to the mountain for the G7 and taking journalists with them. And Politico actually did have an interesting article there about it, where they say that there was actually no time being saved compared to going up there by bus, and journalists were taking up there with a helicopter that burns 1,000 liters of fuel, I think, in a minute. So that's pretty crazy and quite the irony.
Yeah, ironic indeed. Ironic indeed, just like having ads on a podcast, having a commercial break, which we'll have right here. You guys continue listening to our joint consumer podcast, Consumer Choice Radio. We'll be right back after this.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
And we're back here on Consumer Choice Radio, a joint podcast here with the Consumer Podcast. Bill was telling us about the helicopter that the G7 leaders were taking up to the mountains. At the same time that they're talking about energy, they're trying to find alternative sources for oil and gas for the European continent so we don't have to pay the Russians anymore. And meanwhile, all the administrations are, still clinging to the climate policies that really mean they're not supposed to be doing any of that stuff. But we can see that the tune has changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish we would just have someone who would refreshingly say, hey, the climate stuff's going to be on hold for a little bit. Because we have bigger issues, and we don't want to fund the Russian war machine, so we're going to maybe put a pause on some of our lofty goals that we campaigned on in the interim, because you can't really have it both ways. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for Joe Biden to expand oil exports and production, and then at the same time hold some of his campaign pledges. And I mean, just given the economic turmoil and the rising cost of living, it would probably be a good time politically for Biden to pivot to like the Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid type of Democratic approach. Will he do that? I don't know. But that would probably be the best route.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know, though. There's a lot of, I don't know if you guys heard, but there's some distracting things happening in the United States. You know, apparently democracy has died, according to Wanda Sykes. Sorry, I'm going to play this now because I figured we're already talking a little bit about democracy and things dying. And I already mentioned the politicians making jokes, and then the comedians are the ones doing politics.
Longer a democracy, right? I mean, it's no longer majority rule.
No, certainly not in the Senate. Certainly not in the representation of the Supreme Court.
It's not. Yeah. It's not. It's no longer majority rule. And I mean, it's like these judges that just they basically lied when they were during their confirmation hearings, right?
Yeah. Especially Kavanaugh.
Well, to me, it's like the problem is that middle stuff. It's those states in the middle, that red stuff. Mm-hmm. Why do they get to tell us what to do when the majority of us live out, New York, California, and we're paying for all this crap, really? I mean, right?
Yeah.
We're footing the bill.
Well, that's the union. It's supposed to be representative democracy, but it turns out to be minority rule right now.
Right.
And coming up next, Justin Bieber with his next track.
Yeah, Bill. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the thing when she says that, why are they making the rules for us? So, I think the Roe v. Wade overturning is not good. You're going to see some very restrictive bills in Republican states be re-implemented. There's a whole host of negative consequences. I find the very strident pro-life position to be quite naive. But this is not red states telling blue states what to do. It's telling the states to do whatever they want, and so the blue states can still do the blue things. And so that's with that type of analysis. I'm like, well, you don't really understand that. Like, New York can still have whatever laws it wants on, let's say, reproductive rights. Texas is going to be different, but Texas is not telling New York to change their law. I think the Texas law is bad, but you got to realize what the overturning of Roe v. Wade is and what it isn't. And I mean, it's like a lot of people just fail the civics class.
I think we should do a quiz with people and actually use the script from what we just heard and then ask people, was this said by a conservative in 2015 when the Supreme Court overturned the rules on same-sex marriage, or was this done after Roe v. Wade? Because this could equally have been said by a conservative when same-sex marriage was allowed in the US. And so the consistency doesn't really apply. Everybody believes in sort of what regions or states should be allowed to do whenever it suits them. It's too political. It's not really based on sort of what the principle ought to be.
Well,
yeah, same for cannabis and so many other topics.
Yeah, and the flip of that would be, right, if you got rid of the Electoral College and you allocated Senate seats based on population, you'd have New York and Texas deciding what the red state, what life looks like for you could have people in red states saying the exact same thing, being like, well, why do people in California and New York get to decide what the land use regulations are in Iowa?
Well, that's federalism, and the point is everybody hates it because nobody has absolute majority rule. That's kind of the point. That's a major so-called problem in the European Union, right? That member states still have power bill, which I know you cover a lot, which is very problematic for central planners who would like to implement one rule for everybody. But yeah, this stuff is messy, and that's probably a good thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, the European Union even has stronger rules because, as far as I understand, it's not that the state can veto legislation done federally in Washington, D.C., but in the European Union.
Well, last time we did that, we had a civil war. That was nullification, but we won't talk about that.
But in any way, I mean, on specific legislation, individual member states can just say no. And if one member state in the European Union says no, it won't go through. And that's even a stronger sort of system compared to what the US has. But I mean, ultimately, the question would be, why would member nations in the European Union sign up for this? Because, I'm from Luxembourg, a very small country. So if you went by population size, then also we would be outvoted by Germany each time. So sort of the reason why individual countries are a member of this is because the rules were made in a way to appeal to them to join in the first place. So it's my understanding as well that sort of the Electoral College, or also the way that the Senate is organized in the US is by that representational system where it's 2 per state, not according to population size.
Yeah, and it's a bicameral legislature, right? So you have the House version, you have the Senate, and that's the whole point.
And what I'm about to say will probably make a lot of Democrats or progressives fume, but like the way in which the Senate is allocated allowed for Joe Manchin to save the nation from an additional like $6 trillion of federal spending and the further inflationary impact of that. And so, I mean, that is consequentially one good outcome of the fact that West Virginia happens to have 2 senators, and the way in which the Senate broke down is he got to be the voice of reason in between the Democrats and Republicans, saying maybe we need to hold the presses for a little bit and take our foot off the gas on spending.
I think where some of the people who criticize sort of these veto powers or this way in which the system works have a point is when politics gets really in the way of what the actual issue is. So I think in the case where specific US senators oppose or approve a bill, it doesn't necessarily have to do with them agreeing on it, but having played politics on issues that they support. So for instance, in the European Union, we have similar things. So I know that when the UK was a member of the EU, Spain was vetoing legislation that the UK wanted because Spain and the UK are still fighting over this island, this half island of Gibraltar. So just because of that, everything that came out of the UK when it came to legislation was blocked by Spain. It had nothing to do with the actual issue. It's just blocked because for the sake of it. And so that happens, sort of these trade-offs happen where we don't know why was this vote taken in this way. We don't have actual transparency on how the politicians were acting.
Oh, yeah, indeed. And I wanted to play actually a small clip of the good old Boris Johnson. So he was at the G7 event as well and had a little sit down with Jake Tapper. And he talks a little bit about democracy, and the sort of media class is stating that the U.S. looks like it's just lost all democracy. What do you think about that, Boris? And I think he had some very good insights.
We're here at the G7, a gathering of the world's leading democracies. When I talk to friends in Canada, the UK, Australia, and elsewhere, people express concern about the United States about the United States in terms of our ability and our institutions to thrive and continue after what happened with the election of 2020. They worry that democracy is on life support in the United States. People might not know this about you, but you were born in the United States, and until recently you
I was.
And
I was born in New York City, a fantastic place. Jake, where were you born? Where were you born in New York?
Where was Staten Island?
All right, okay. I was born in New York General Hospital. Anyway.
Are you worried at all? Do you look?
No, I want to say this to the people of the United States. I'm not. I think that I just get back to what I've been trying to say to you throughout this interview. I think that reports of the death of democracy in the United States are grossly exaggerated. America is a shining city on a hill, and for me, and it will continue to be so. And I think that the mere fact that Joe Biden has stepped up to the plate in the way that he has shows that the instincts of America are still very much in the right place.
So yeah, there's a lot more where that came from. But Bill, I was curious as to your thoughts. You're a BJ watcher, as they call it, Bojo watcher. What do you think of that?
I don't think I want to necessarily have BJ Watcher as a title of mine, but no, I think he makes a good point there. I mean, I think Americans, when if you tune into CNN or any of the major networks, you get the impression that the US is falling apart and the institutions are falling apart. I mean, sure, you shouldn't necessarily look abroad and do international comparisons, but I mean, if you do international comparisons, then the US is really there's no rivalry there. There's actually a system where courts, individual counties and states can oppose rules that they don't like, make choices for themselves, have a lot of individuality, which you don't really get. I mean, if you look at a country like France, everything is being done in Paris. The president decides everything. You build a bridge in the south of France and you still need to get it approved in Paris. You don't have that sort of thinking and system in the US. And you have a lot of decision making that is done at the grassroots. It's so interesting to see that one of the examples that people give when they say like, oh, the system is not working is because there's some of these crazy people going to these town halls or hearings. It's like,